I woke up today to a world that feels a lot smaller and a lot more dangerous. For years, we've talked about the what-ifs of a total energy war, but this morning, the what-if became a terrifying reality. Just hours ago, the horizon over Kuwait didn't show the sunrise. It showed a massive rolling wall of black smoke. Iran didn't just send a message, they sent a swarm. One of the world's most critical oil hubs is currently under a rain of fire. And as I watch the global markets go into a literal free fall, I realize this isn't just another regional skirmish. This is the first domino in a conflict that could leave your cars empty and your cities dark. It started when the sky over the Persian Gulf began to buzz, with a sound I can only describe as 1,000 lawnmowers approaching at once. I've been tracking the movements in the Strait of Hormuz for weeks, but no one expected a direct, multi-pronged hit on Kuwait's crown jewel, the Al-Zour and Mina Al-Ahmadi facilities. Around 3 a.m., the first reports hit the wires. I saw the grainy, handheld footage before the mainstream media could even verify it. Streaks of light cutting through the darkness, followed by the kind of explosions that rattle your bones from miles away. This wasn't a precision strike on a single building. It was a saturation attack. Iranian-made drones and cruise missiles bypassed layered defense systems, slamming directly into the distillation units and storage tanks. As I look at the satellite heat maps lighting up right now, the damage is staggering. We aren't just talking about a few broken pipes. We're talking about severe material damage to the very infrastructure that keeps the global economy lubricated. Kuwait has already shut down 2 major power units, and their water desalination plants, the only thing keeping that desert nation hydrated, are currently struggling to stay online. In a matter of minutes, a peaceful night turned into a desperate fight to keep the lights on and the water flowing. The air over the Gulf is thick with more than just smoke right now. It's thick with the realization that the red line has been completely erased. As the sun rose, the true scale of the chaos became clear. I'm seeing reports of global oil prices jumping by $10 a barrel in a single trading session. Traders aren't just panicked, they're paralyzed. This wasn't a random target. By hitting Kuwait's biggest facility, Iran has effectively strangled one of the world's most reliable supply chains. I've spent the morning monitoring the frantic diplomatic cables leaking out of the region. Kuwait has officially declared a state of emergency, but it's the silence from the surrounding neighbors that's even more deafening. For the first time in decades, the security umbrella we thought was impenetrable has been proven useless against cheap, mass-produced drone technology. If you think this is just a local problem, look at the screen of any stock exchange. Every major airline, every shipping company, and every manufacturing giant is feeling the shockwaves. The message Iran sent was chillingly simple. If we can't export our oil, no one can. They have turned the energy market into a battlefield, and right now, the world is realizing we are completely unprepared for a war where the main weapon is the destruction of our very way of life. The global response is shifting from shock to a cold, calculated fury. I've been watching the movement of the U.S. Fifth Fleet, and the waters of the Arabian Gulf are becoming crowded with more than just tankers. We are seeing a massive mobilization of naval assets, but there's a catch. Every move toward retaliation risks sparking a fire that can't be put out. If the West strikes back at Iranian launch sites, Tehran has already signaled that the remaining facilities in the region are next on their list. I'm looking at the emergency logistics data right now, and the just-in-time supply chain we all rely on is beginning to fracture. Insurance companies have already suspended coverage for vessels in the northern Gulf, effectively putting a blockade on Kuwaiti and Iraqi exports without even firing a shot. It's a ghost town out there. What's truly haunting me, though, is the realization of how fragile our modern existence is. I see people at the grocery store and the gas station going about their day, completely unaware that the backbone of their world was snapped in half last night. This isn't just about high prices at the pump anymore. It's about a total shift in the balance of power. The energy war hasn't just begun, it has already claimed its first victim, and the world is holding its breath to see who the next target will be. The strategic fallout is reaching a fever pitch. I've been tracking the back-channel communications between OPEC Plus members, and the unity we once took for granted is dissolving into every man for himself survivalism. This wasn't just an attack on Kuwait. It was a demonstration of absolute vulnerability. If a facility this size, protected by some of the most advanced missile defense systems money can buy, can be turned into a localized sun in the middle of the night, then no refinery on the planet is safe. I'm looking at the refined product charts, and the data is grim. We aren't just losing crude oil, we are losing the ability to turn that oil into the jet fuel and diesel that keeps the world's heart beating. The Al-Zour refinery was a pillar of the global market, and with it offline, the premium on every gallon of fuel you buy is about to skyrocket. The most terrifying part isn't the fire itself, it's the precedent. Iran has effectively bypassed the traditional rules of engagement. They didn't declare war, they simply paralyzed the global energy pulse. As I watch the emergency sessions at the UN unfold, it's clear that the old playbook is useless. We are entering a phase where a $2,000 drone can take out a $20 billion facility, and there is no undo button for the economic catastrophe that follows. The question on everyone's mind isn't if there will be a response, but whether the world can survive the consequences of one. As we stand on the precipice of a global energy shutdown, the reality is starting to sink in. The era of cheap energy might have just ended in a single night of fire. I'm seeing reports of panic buying in cities across the globe, from London to Tokyo. People are starting to realize that when the world's biggest oil facilities go dark, the ripple effect doesn't just stop at the gas station. It hits your heating bill, your grocery costs, and the very stability of your local economy. The most chilling aspect of this morning's intelligence briefings is the why behind the target. By hitting Kuwait, Iran chose a nation that has historically tried to play the role of a neutral mediator. The message is loud and clear. There is no more neutral ground. You are either with the global energy flow or you are a target of the disruption. I've spent the last few hours looking at the military positioning in the Strait, and it looks like a powder keg waiting for a match. We aren't just talking about a regional conflict anymore. We are talking about a total geopolitical realignment. The old alliances are being tested by the flame, and as the black smoke continues to billow over the Gulf, the world is forced to face a hard truth. Our reliance on this single, volatile region has become our greatest collective weakness. This is no longer a breaking news headline. This is the start of a new, darker chapter in modern history. I'm looking at the latest thermal imaging from the site, and the fires are still uncontrolled. It's a haunting visual, thousands of tons of carbon rising into the atmosphere, a physical manifestation of billions of dollars evaporating into thin air. For the first time in my career, I'm seeing analysts use the word permanent when discussing the shift in global trade routes. This isn't a temporary spike. This is a structural collapse of the energy security we've relied on since the end of the Cold War. Behind the scenes, the fingers are already on the triggers. My sources in the region are describing a dead man's switch scenario. If the international community moves to retaliate against Iran's coastal infrastructure, Tehran has allegedly prepared a second wave, targeting the desalination plants that provide drinking water to millions across the Arabian Peninsula. They aren't just targeting our wallets anymore. They are targeting human survival. The silence from the major world powers is what scares me the most. There are no easy condemnations today because every leader knows that one wrong move, one intercepted missile, or one retaliatory strike could turn the Persian Gulf into a graveyard for the global economy. As I sit here watching the live feeds of the burning horizon, I can't help but feel that the world we knew yesterday is gone. We've entered a new age of energy siege, and right now, the only thing certain is that tomorrow is going to be even more expensive and much more dangerous. As I monitor the emergency broadcasts, the atmosphere is shifting from panic to a grim realization of what total energy war actually looks like. I'm seeing internal memos from major shipping conglomerates that are now ordering their entire fleets to anchor and wait. They aren't moving. The world's oceans are essentially becoming a giant parking lot because nobody can guarantee the safety of these vessels anymore. What's truly disturbing is the intelligence coming in regarding the precision of the strike. This wasn't a blind barrage. The drones hit the specific long-lead components, parts of the refinery that take years, not months, to manufacture and replace. This wasn't an attempt to temporarily stop the flow of oil. It was an attempt to break the system's spine. I'm looking at the global power grid projections, and the forecast is dark, literally. In parts of Europe and Asia, the talk has already shifted to mandatory energy rationing. We are seeing a return to a 1970s-style crisis, but with 21st century stakes. The digital world we live in, the servers that hold our data, and the logistics that deliver our food all run on the stability that was incinerated in Kuwait last night. As I watch the military scrambled jets patrolling the borders, I realize we aren't just watching a news story. We are watching the end of an era of global stability. The energy war isn't a headline anymore. It's our new reality. I've just received word that the cyber warfare units are now joining the physical battle. Reports are flooding in that as the smoke rose in Kuwait, a massive coordinated cyber attack began hitting the command and control systems of other major refineries across the Middle East. It's a pincer movement, fire on the ground and code in the servers. This confirms my worst fear. This isn't just about one facility. It's a systematic attempt to blind and paralyze the entire global energy infrastructure. I'm looking at the flight paths of global leaders right now, and the diplomatic scramble is unlike anything I've seen in my lifetime. There are no allies in this moment, only countries trying to secure their own survival. I'm seeing nations that were bitter enemies just yesterday suddenly making frantic deals behind closed doors to secure whatever fuel reserves are left. The social contract is thinning. In some major cities, the first reports of civil unrest over skyrocketing fuel prices are already hitting the wires. As I sit here in my studio, the glow of the monitors is the only light in the room, and it feels symbolic. We have spent decades building a world that is incredibly fast and incredibly connected, but we forgot how fragile the foundation really is. We are watching the gears of global civilization grind to a halt because a few drones found their mark in a desert thousands of miles away. The energy war has moved past the borders of Kuwait and into our very homes. And the frightening truth is, we are only in the opening hours of this conflict. I'm looking at the latest images of the Al-Zor facility, and the fire is so intense it's creating its own weather system. Black, oily rain is falling miles away from the blast site. But the real storm is the one hitting the global financial markets. Gold is hitting all-time highs, and the dollar is fluctuating wildly as investors realize that the world's energy bank has just been robbed in broad daylight. This isn't just about Kuwait anymore. It's a terrifying proof of concept. I've been diving into the technical specs of the defenses that were supposed to prevent this. We're talking about billions of dollars in Western-made radar and surface-to-air batteries that were simply overwhelmed by the sheer volume of low-cost tech. It's a David versus Goliath scenario, except David has a swarm of explosive drones, and Goliath is the global economy. Every country with a coastline or a power plant is now looking at their own defenses and realizing they might be holding an umbrella in a hurricane. The most haunting part of this hour is the social media blackout coming out of the region. As the Kuwaiti government tries to contain the panic, the lack of information is being filled by rumors of even larger strikes planned for tonight. I see the lines forming at gas stations across the Western world, the frantic social media posts, and the palpable sense of dread. We've spent years talking about the tipping point. As I watch that black smoke continue to pour into the sky, I think we just crossed it. The world isn't going back to the way it was yesterday. The energy war is no longer a threat. It's the air we're breathing. I'm tracking the movement of specialized firefighting teams being flown in from across the globe, but the reports coming back are grim. The heat is so intense that the structural steel of the storage tanks is literally liquefying. This means the spill isn't contained, it's spreading toward the coastline. We are now looking at a potential environmental catastrophe that could shut down shipping lanes in the Gulf for months. If the crude reaches the desalination intakes, the humanitarian crisis in Kuwait will escalate from a power outage to a total lack of drinking water for millions. In the last hour, I've seen a shift in the rhetoric coming out of the major capitals. The wait-and-see approach is being replaced by active mobilization. I'm seeing satellite imagery of long-range bombers being prepped on runways halfway across the world. The chess pieces are moving. We are no longer discussing if there will be a counterstrike, but where it will land. The tension is so thick you can almost feel it through the screen. What hits me the hardest is seeing the faces of the workers who were at the facility, the people who keep the world's heart beating. They are the first casualties in a war they didn't ask for. As I look at the global supply maps, the red zones are expanding. We are witnessing the literal decoupling of the global economy. This is a moment where history splits into the world before the Kuwait strike and the uncertain, darkened world that comes after. We are all just passengers now watching the glow of a fire that might not go out for a very long time. I've been staring at the updated geopolitical maps for the last hour, and the lines of trade are being redrawn in real time. It's not just about the oil anymore. It's about the terrifying realization that the energy heart of the world has a target on it that nobody knows how to hide. I'm seeing reports of unconventional alliances forming. Countries that haven't spoken in years are suddenly sharing intelligence because the fear of a total global blackout is more powerful than decades of hatred. The streets in Kuwait City are reportedly eerily quiet, save for the sirens of emergency vehicles. But on the digital front, the war is screaming. I'm watching a flood of disinformation hitting the internet, designed to make every nation look over its shoulder at its neighbor. This is the new face of conflict. You don't just blow up a building, you blow up the trust that keeps the global system functioning. As I look at the logistics data for the coming week, the ripple effect has become a tidal wave. Cargo ships carrying everything from grain to microchips are diverting around the Cape of Good Hope, adding weeks to their journeys and billions to the cost of living. We are witnessing the literal slowing down of the planet. The high-speed, interconnected world I've lived in my entire life is being forced into a crawl. I'm sitting here, watching the sun start to set, and for the first time, I'm wondering if the lights will actually come on tonight, or if this is the beginning of a long, cold shadow falling over us all. I've just received a flash report from the naval corridors, and the situation has taken a turn that I hoped I'd never have to report. Several tankers, spooked by the chaos, have reportedly attempted to flee the area, but the Strait of Hormuz is becoming a gauntlet. I'm looking at live tracking data, and the congestion is staggering. It's a bottleneck that controls the lifeblood of the modern world, and right now, that bottle is being corked. I'm seeing emergency meetings being called in the middle of the night in Washington, London, and Beijing. For the first time in history, the interests of these superpowers are aligned by a single, terrifying reality. None of them can survive a prolonged disconnection from this energy source. Yet, the military options on the table all lead to the same dead end: more fire, more destruction, and a higher probability of a total global collapse. As I watch the latest drone view footage of the Al-Zor facility, it looks like a wound on the surface of the earth. It's a reminder that our entire civilization is built on a foundation of stability that is actually incredibly thin. We are all connected by these pipelines and shipping lanes, and when one is severed, we all feel the pain. I'm looking at the projected energy costs for the next quarter, and the numbers are so high they look like typos, but they aren't. This is the price of a world at war with its own power source. The energy war isn't coming. It's here, and it's staring us right in the face. The atmosphere has shifted from a regional crisis to a global state of high alert. I'm looking at internal memos from major airlines that are grounded, not because of weather, but because the fuel reserves they rely on are being diverted for military use. I've spent the last hour watching the emergency energy protocols being activated in countries I never thought would see them. This isn't just about a refinery anymore. It's about the fact that the invisible thread holding our modern lives together has been snapped. I'm seeing reports of shadow fleets moving under the cover of darkness, trying to bypass the blocked straits, but the risk is astronomical. Every radar ping, every unidentified blip on a sonar screen is now treated as a potential act of war. As I sit here, I'm realizing that the sheer speed of this escalation is what's most paralyzing. We went from a localized strike to a total global energy siege in less than 24 hours. The most haunting image I've seen all day isn't the fire itself, but the empty streets in the world's most powerful financial districts. The markets have stopped trading because there's no way to value a future that looks this uncertain. We are living through a historic pivot point. The era where we could take our energy for granted is dead. As I watch the satellite feeds showing the black plume drifting over the ocean, I'm forced to ask, how do we rebuild a world that has been shown exactly how easy it is to break? The energy war has moved into its most dangerous phase yet, and we are all just waiting to see where the next strike lands. I'm standing here looking at the final data sheets of the day, and the numbers are chilling. This isn't just a localized disaster, it is a global cardiac arrest. I've seen reports of the first major blackouts hitting international hubs, and for the first time in our modern history, the Great Reset isn't a conspiracy theory. It's a physical reality written in smoke and fire across the Kuwaiti sky. As I watch the latest thermal scans, the heat signatures aren't fading, they are spreading. This was the master stroke. By taking out the world's most sophisticated facility, Iran didn't just burn oil, they burned the illusion of our security. They've proven that the most powerful nations on Earth are effectively held hostage by a few miles of water and a handful of drones. Tonight, as you look around your home, realize that every light bulb, every device, and every meal in your fridge is tied to a system that was proven to be defenseless today. The energy war has officially moved from a headline to your doorstep. We are heading into a winter and a future that looks darker and colder than anything we were prepared for. The world we woke up to yesterday is gone, and as the sirens continue to wail across the Gulf, the only question left is, in a world without power, who really holds the control? This is the end of the beginning, and the dark has only just started to fall. Watch the skies, because the world as we know it just changed forever.